to start off with, I just obviously want to send my solidarity to the victims in North Syria at the moment where the Kurds are being bombed. I think we some of us witnessed it on our TV screens in recent days and weeks. And to see that, I have to say, it's absolutely horrendous. So from Ireland, I obviously want to show and send my solidarity to all those people who have been killed, and obviously the victims of the bombing campaign. I mean, we did go out as impartial observers, and I have to say I didn't expect the -7-degree temperature when we were standing outside some of the courts, but I think that made it more realistic for us all. Because when we were standing outside the court, which was in a heavily fortified prison, and when we went up to the gates to get entrance to the court to go and witness the court case for ourselves, and remember we already had permission to visit the court and have access to the court, but we were stopped. We weren't allowed in anywhere near inside the court. We were actually held in between a fence and a gate. Some of us had got inside the front door where there was a bit of heating on, but we were soon pushed outside that front door where we were not allowed in. The legal team for the two co-chairs were negotiating with the judge. The judge had given permission. The legal team came out and told that to the police, but the police still denied us entry into the court. To me, that sends a very clear message out. Who runs the system when the police at a court case can refuse entry for international observers? Many were MPs, many were MEPs, and many other people from different trade unions and other walks of life were refused entry in that court. So the question that I asked was to myself, why were we refused entry? What are the state trying to hide? What is the system trying to not allow international observers to see? I can't answer that question because I wasn't allowed in to see to witness the court case. So in my view, I mean, that was very, very much wrong. If it had been an impartial court case, why was an international impartial delegation not allowed in? That's a question that only the Turkish state can answer, because in my view, what we were out there for was to try and witness and maybe basic human rights. Everybody, in my view, was denied human rights at this particular stage because of the political decision not to let us in. Our delegation were told that we were a security threat. To who? Or who was a security threat? So, again, that's another question that hasn't been answered and another question that we have to pose. But to say the Fridays when we were pushed outside the court case, you had police with their shields, you had police with their batons, and then you were surrounded on a number of occasions with water tanks. So, I mean, I've witnessed water tanks in the past. I've been hit with water tanks in Belfast, and I certainly didn't want to be hit with a water tank at a -7-degree temperature outside the court. And there was people of all ages there, which I thought was a very positive sign. And on the second day we went back, we weren't even allowed in to as close where we got the first day. So to me, there is a fear factor in society that the Turkish state is trying to put on not only the Kurdish people, not only on Turkish people, but also on international delegations coming over. They are trying to put the fear into people. First of all, if you go, you'll not be allowed access. Second of all, if you're going to talk, that you could be arrested. Third of all, if you're there, is that you're there to try and witness basic human rights, which are being denied. So the Turkish state certainly do not want to see you witnessing that, because even driving around, anchoring different places, there were water cannons about different streets. I have never ever seen that unless there's been a riot going on or ongoing trouble. I mean, when we were driving about, it certainly didn't look, and Marsh, I think it was yourself said to me one day in the van that this doesn't look like a state of emergency. But you had the water cannons about every street corner almost at some time. So why is that? We all have to ask ourselves the question. In my view, again, and I was there as an impartial international observer, but in my view I have to take something away from it, because I have to do a report to my own party as well, and obviously to write up on it and make sure that I tell people back home for what I witnessed. In my view, that is the state trying to put their thumbs to keep society down so they don't raise their head. And I think that the people who do raise their head in Turkey have a very real chance of getting their head taken away from them, because when we talk to trade unions have lost jobs because they may have a political aspiration. I think somewhere in the region of 20,000 people have been put out of jobs. Many people have been arrested as well because they had a political affiliation or had political ideas. We met with people who I suppose, have told us with regards to some of their rights when they held up a placard after they had lost their job. When they held up a placard saying, "I want my job back," they were put into jail. For what? Holding up a placard for demanding your rights and demanding your job back. You were automatically put into jail. So thousands of people were being put in jail. I had the privilege today to meet Francis O'Grady from the TUC this morning to talk about workers' rights. I had the privilege to meet her and talk about workers' rights and basic rights for workers and employees. Employees and state employees in Turkey don't have that right at all. They have trade unions represent them, but the trade unionists themselves run the risk of being arrested and put into jail. And one of the things that actually, I suppose, stuck with me in my visit there as well, there was very little media coverage, apart from people with their own cameras and stuff, but there was very little state coverage. But then we asked the question when we went on, there's so many reasons, I think at that particular stage, of 167 journalists in jail. That's why there's no state or other journalists out there trying to publish the story, because again, if you're a journalist, you run the risk of going to jail for reporting the facts and reporting something factual. That's not the way anybody should live. That's not the way systems should be. We all have a duty to ensure that we challenge that system no matter where it is, whether it's in Turkey or anywhere else for that matter. Each and every single one of us in this room and beyond have a duty to protect people who are being downtrodden. Because I know what it's like to be downtrodden. I know what it's like to have two brothers who were arrested and interned without trial, without conviction, were arrested and put behind jail for a number of years. We met people in Turkey who had suffered the same consequence of that. And I can tell you, it's not fair, it's not on, and it shouldn't be happening anywhere in this day and age. So it is wrong with the system. So since I've come home from Turkey, I've wrote about it, I've put social media stuff on it, put articles on it, press conference or press statements out on it as well. There is a statement, I think, or not a statement, it was a proverb, which is a Kurdistan proverb, and I'll read it here. It says that the Kurds have no friends, only the mountains. Well, I can tell the Kurds that they have plenty of friends. They have one more friend since I've come back from Kurdistan, and I'm sure our delegation, when we all came back, we are actually very much friends with Kurdistan. And I can tell you all that the people who I've spoke to since I've come back to Ireland, the people I will continue to speak to, there will be plenty more friends. And the more friends we can get for the Kurdish people, the more friends that we can get to criticise Turkey for their role, what they're doing, and then the easier it will be for the Turkish society and the Kurdish society as well. So we need to step up our mark, we need to step up all of our commitment and ensure that we tell the world of the injustices what is going on in Turkey. It has to stop, and it has to stop now. There's no point in government sitting back and saying absolutely nothing because maybe they've entered into some trade deals with them. Well, I can tell you that's not acceptable. People need to challenge, governments need to step up to the mark to challenge the Turkish state, the state to say that it's not what they're doing and what they're involved in, criminalising people for having a political aspiration, putting people into jail for having political aspirations. Those days are over and should be gone forever. So we have a duty in this room today to go from here this evening to make sure that we step up all of our endeavours to ensure that justice prevails for the people who are inside jail, for justice prevails for the people who are on the hunger strike in Turkey, and justice prevails for the Kurdish people. And let us move from here this evening and redouble all of our efforts to ensure that we go out to the world and tell the world that it's not acceptable and it has to stop, and it has to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name's Dennis McNulty, obviously, as you well know, and I represented the GMB Trade Union as part of the international delegation. What I witnessed firsthand were some issues that concerned me, because when we first arrived at the hotel, we was asked to give our passports over so that we could use the internet, and they would take our passport numbers and monitor exactly what we were doing on the internet. So that emphasised that clearly this was a police state that we turned up to. That was evidenced the very next day, because the very next day, what happened at the prison, we actually went to a prison, and I believe we was at that prison because they wanted to do these trials behind closed doors. So we were told that we was allowed to enter that prison and into the courtrooms. However, on that day, what it appeared to be was we wasn't allowed to go into the prison because it transpired. The judge said, yes, we can go in. Unfortunately, the Commissioner of Police said, no, we can't go in. So clearly there was a ruling around a police state aspect and more an oppression towards the Turkish people and the Kurdish people. This was concerning to us because the very fact that we were locked out, we actually created history on that day because we forced an issue where it removed the state of governance because it then became apparent that it was clearly a police state. So from our perspective, I think, one, we created history. Two, the other concern that we've got from a trade union standpoint is we have heard little or any information that's coming through from this government about the atrocities that are going on in Turkey. These people that are members of the opposition party from Erdogan is a clear attack on a political party and I would say more to the fact on the people around their beliefs, their religious aspects. This is clearly an oppression. The concern that we witnessed lots of, I wouldn't say we witnessed, we were part of. We met with human rights aspects, the atrocities that we heard, the rapes, the tortures, the MPs that were sent to prison having collars round their necks to say that they're terrorists, and they're labelling these people as terrorists. So there's a clear concern this terrorism word is being used deliberately by, I would more to the point, by the president of that country. And my concern about that country, for the first time I've ever been there, I don't want to go back there because from what I saw and what I witnessed, it was frightening. We had water cannons, we had guns, we got a banner out. We were told when we got this banner out from the GMB to take that away or we get arrested. So there was clear hostility towards us as well. So from my point of view, the injustice of these people is horrendous. And I would say what I brought home from that is that I came away, I had a Christmas that I wasn't very happy about because I walked away from people who were suffering, who were sitting in prisons, waiting to go to jail, or waiting to go to court, and if they got sentenced, these people were going to do 147 years, one person, 88 years for another person, and every time they went to court, the charges just kept escalating. So it was a conveyor belt. It wasn't in this country. If you had a disciplinary, you would probably get a slap on the wrist for what these people have done. This is a clear oppression, and this is more a tyrant. And I think that this government needs to stand up and do something more about it. Thank you very much.
With comrades to Ankara to witness for myself what's going on there. I represent Londoners who live in Hackney, Islington and Waltham Forest. So for the last 30 years, either at the Assembly or as councillor, I've worked alongside members of my constituency of Kurdish and Turkish origin. And I've heard the stories that they had to say, what they're hearing about what's happening to their relatives and friends and what's happening to their beloved Turkey, saying that there is no way they could ever go home again because of the way that Turkey has been ruled under a sort of presidential decree sort of basis. almost, is it wet today? People should stay at home. I mean, there is no sense of any order, of any system at play from what I heard from people when I was there and what people are telling me here. So I was glad to be able to go. And unlike my colleagues, you're not prepared for it. You're absolutely not prepared for it. And I say that because we go with our idea of Turkey, because we have been amongst Turkish and Kurdish comrades for many, many years. We visited Turkey. We have a strong feeling for Turkey. So really, we sometimes might be inclined to take a little blinkered view and say, maybe tomorrow it will resolve itself. But from what I saw, from what you've heard from my colleagues, it cannot be resolved within. The bravest people that we met, the bravest politicians that we met, and just to add, and I think somebody's going to pick this up, but when you think you've seen it all and heard it all, and then on the way to the airport, you meet the bravest person that I'm ever going to be privileged to meet, who is still alive after a hunger strike of over, I think, Ibrahim, over 200 days or something like that. 277 days. And we had to be barriered so that we didn't give him any infections. So we had to gown up. And he wanted to meet us, so he sort of broke that and sat with us and embraced us. We can never forget that, and that's why I join what colleagues have said. We've got a duty to actually speak up and say, we have been there, we have seen it, and our government has got to take a strong position. I'm a member of the Labour Party. The Labour Party leadership have got to take a strong position. As part of the action, we as Labour members, we will be looking for a meeting with Emily Thornberry because this is her portfolio, and if we can't get that, then we'll have to go to the leadership. We are committed, as you've heard from my colleague, to do whatever we can, and so the meeting that we're hosting is to enable councillors who are representative of Kurdish and Turkish communities or are of that heritage to come together so we can have a network. And we'll start it in London, but hopefully we'll be able to spread it around the country, because what we've got to do is band together. We can't not be engaged in this. And I really don't have any more to add because my colleagues have said everything that I experienced. I've got two other speakers. Thank you.